Business Now with Stephen. He's starting with Apple today. This is the latest, the very latest iPhone launch, not another one.
And surprise, surprise, it is the most expensive smartphone yet from Apple. The iPhone XS Max will sell for €1,259 here in France and just under $1,100 in the United States. This follows the success of last year's iPhone X, which was at the time also the company's most expensive phone. So is Apple now only focusing on the premium buyer and letting its rivals focus on cheaper phones? Well, Solange Moujon has more.
It is the most expensive iPhone Apple has sold to date.
I'm excited to show you what is by far the most advanced iPhone we have ever created.
At $1,099 in the US and over €1,200 in France, the iPhone XS Max has a larger screen and beefed up technology. But critics say there aren't major differences with previous models. The high price tag also points to Apple's plans to continue wooing the high-end market, rather than trying to be the world's #1 smartphone maker. They're currently third behind Samsung and Huawei. Wednesday's launch also indicates that last year's gamble with the $1,000 iPhone X has paid off. Since then, Apple's become the world's first company with a market value of over $1 trillion, thanks in large part to their iPhones. Profits that mean that Apple is trying, for now successfully, to offset slowing turnaround. For people on the whole are switching phones less often.
That large phone is going to go to the dedicated Apple fans who are, frankly, willing to pay almost anything. And then we did see them bring the iPhone X family down to $749, which is still expensive, but, a little bit more reasonable.
Over the next year, Apple is expected to ship over 150 million units of the 3 iPhone models they've launched, as well as millions of other products, including new smartwatches. Also unveiled in Cupertino, the Apple Watch 4 can now act as a heart monitor, a boon for aging Apple fans.
Now, potential bad news for Apple, though. It's a company that could be hit by an escalation of trade tensions, of course, between the US and China.
The Trump administration, though, is said to be seeking a new round of talks with Beijing before the United States imposes its next round of tariffs, which will affect $200 billion worth of Chinese imports. According to the Wall Street Journal, the invitation came from the US Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin. The last round of talks in August failed to yield any results. President Trump's economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, though, was optimistic that progress could be made this time around.
If they come to the table in a serious way to generate some positive results, yes, of course. It's what we've been asking for months and months, what the president's been asking for months and months. Sure, absolutely.
Does this represent a thaw? Does it represent a thaw?
I don't want to put adjectives. I don't want to get details. I'm just saying we are in communication right now, and you could say that communication has picked up a notch.
I've been keeping an eye on the oil markets, and Hurricane Florence had sent prices soaring earlier in the week. Today in trading, oil a little bit weaker. US WTI and Brent crude, the international benchmark, slightly weaker, but they're still close to a 4-year high. Brent crude still nudging close to that $80 a barrel price. Fears over the hurricane combining with concerns of a global supply shortfall. On the stock markets, European markets opening pretty flat today. Just Paris's CAC 40 nudging into the red. Here in France, the tyre maker Michelin's shares are up 1.5% at the open. That's after the company confirmed its financial targets for the year. Over in Asia, that news of new trade talks helping to boost markets. In China in particular, the Hang Seng and Hong Kong at 1.8%. It had been one of the hardest hit over trade worries. Obviously some relief for investors there.
Now in the US, regulators are considering banning all flavoured e-cigarettes.
The head of the Food and Drug Administration says that teenage use of the vaporizers has reached an epidemic proportion. Last year, 2.1 million middle and high school students were using e-cigarettes, and the FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb says the 2018 figures are even higher. He's asked the leading manufacturers in the sector to come up with plans to reduce teenage use or risk having their products banned.
And finally from Stephen, a story now of a very expensive, rat.
Well, I hope you weren't eating it, and that's why it wasn't. This is the story of a woman in China who discovered a rat in her soup in a chain restaurant. in the Chinese province of Shandong. The video of the moment went viral over the weekend. The story picked up here by the South China Morning Post. But the story sent shares in the company called Xiaobu down in Hong Kong. They fell by 12% at one point, and that one rat has wiped around 160 million euros off the company's value.
Croutons. Maybe not.
Best not to think about it.
No, exactly. Thank you very much, Stephen. Stephen Carroll with Business Software on Sunny 4.